All right, thanks everyone for that warm welcome and that music that fits so perfectly with our theme of really awakening our passion, revealing our purpose, and we're going to explore that through the 4 weeks of talks. 4 weeks in July, right, Lolita?
Yeah.
Yeah, August. July was 5.
Right.
August, sorry. How can I forget August? Because we have so many August birthdays here in our community. Yeah, there was a lot of activity in the late fall, right? November. In the cold weather, yeah, under the blanket. So if you can all start, I got to change the subject.
Yeah.
Let's start with an affirmation here. I am an individual creation of life.
I am an individual creation of life.
Born with passion.
Born with passion.
I am an individual creation of life.
I am an individual creation of life.
Born with passion.
Born with passion.
Like, wow, think of us coming out of the womb, like even before that, this energy of life that we're infused with. This incredible mix that we are of consciousness and biology and nurturing and all of these fabulous things that happen in the experience of our life. A lot of times when we come to church communities, right, we spend time trying to get back to that childlike wonder that we all once had. Acknowledging that not everyone's childhood is sunshine and moonbeams. So I acknowledge that we talk about childhood. It's not always the perfect place, but I think everyone has these moments of remembering before we started layering on top the societal norms and pressures of trying to be something or someone that we're not. We all have within us this quality of joy, energy that makes us unique in the world. We were born with it, and we can rediscover now our childlike enthusiasm for life when we reveal our God-given passions. This one life is exactly ours to do, and to do so less than wholeheartedly deprives our world of our best offerings. Why would we do that, right? Brad's, like as often says in his social media presence, right? We are love. So let's let that love out into the world. So this month, as we explore passion and purpose, we begin by encouraging people to identify their hidden, buried, and unexamined passions. Some people are not aware of their passion or dismiss the concept, believing that they may not even have one. Sometimes I've said, well, I'm not creative, or I'm not this, or I don't have a passion, I'm seeking a passion, right? Perhaps the word passion has sometimes become too obscure and elusive. One way to awaken our passion and discover it is to substitute the word joy. What brought you joy at some point in your life, perhaps as a child? Uncovering this can reveal something even more profound. Ernest Holmes, our founder, says, life will be to you what you are to it. Somehow you must link your will, your thought, your intellect, and your imagination, and finally your feeling with the divine presence, which is already there. And he said that in this thing called you. I think for a moment about some of the passions that are in this community, and they are almost innumerable. I think about the love of music and that our music team brings. That can only come with the passion that comes from like letting the energy of the music swell up within, like our guest musician Chris. When there's a theme for the month, it's like this whole spiritual practice begins. What is the music that's being called to be shared with the community that will then become, as Dolores said earlier, like the earworm that sticks with me to remind me of this beauty? I think of the passion of someone who's not here today, but absolutely exudes joy. And maybe she's online. Marguerite exudes joy and passion and bubbles over with creativity and childlike wonder all the time, right? I think about Brad, whose passion is to come out, bring people to their most incredibly authentic out in the world selves to help create a world that works for all. I think about Myrna, whose passion is caring for people in our country and other countries, so much so she's going to pack medical supplies and take them to Cuba shortly. Our passions are innumerable, and they all have a root somewhere. So since we're all unique expressions of the one mind, we were born, of course, with those qualities that enhance our understanding of spirit through our individual lives. Within each of us is a divine spark waiting to be realized and ignited by our awareness of it. Ernest Holmes refers to this as the great I am, right? The great I am, without which we couldn't be. This reveals within us that conscious knowing that we are connected through universal consciousness. I just looked at Randy and thought, oh my God, Randy's passion for like teaching and sitting and helping people be who they are. Like so many passions in this room. Now, have you heard the term adulting? You know, like I'm adulting right now, like it's a separate thing from who we are. Adulting has become a catchword for doing the responsible thing and taking care of business. This is often overshadowed by the childlike wonder of life. What if we could think back to those happy early childhood experiences and remember what used to make our heart sing? What if we spent some time reliving what we wanted to be when we grew up? Not necessarily the specifics, but the creative imagination playing with those passions when we were younger, before perhaps we were told that that is not possible. I'll reflect on some of my childhood passions. I love going to the airport to pick up my dad. Imagine that. He would travel for business, typically leave on a Monday and come back on a Friday. And some of my best memories are my mom taking me and my sister. We'd park the car, we'd walk into the airport, Newark Airport, Newark, New Jersey. And they were like a banjo. The terminal, there was like a thin arm, you know, the arm to the banjo and then the circle at the end. And we would wait in the arm of the banjo for dad. And I loved when his flight was delayed because then I could look out the window and watch this little city happening before me, of airplanes coming and going and people wearing orange vests, and then pilots and flight attendants walking through the terminal, you know, looking regal and confident and professional and laughing because they were on their way to a great layover in Manhattan. But I would sit there and just imagine what it might be like. And so now I work in the airline industry. It was also interesting that as a child, I loved going to big church instead of youth church when I was a little kid. We had a neighbor across the street who went with my grandmother to the Presbyterian church. And I did some youth stuff and I sang in the children's choir. But I would say, can I go to big church with you guys? Because I like to hear the minister speak and I like to hear the music. And I remember never being bored in church. And imagine that. I'm a minister, right? I think so. I remember those little threads that are seeds that are planted in life. And becoming an airline employee or becoming a minister, neither one of those were linear paths. They were paths that wound this way and wound that way, and spent some time in accounting and spent some time not going to church. So holding on to those connections help us reveal these threads that have taken us to the place where we are now. We have often hidden away, right, this childlike wonder with our attempts to not be silly or ridiculous or waste our lives. Einstein reminded us that imagination is more important than knowledge, for knowledge is limited, whereas imagination embraces the entire world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. And Albert Einstein, that's quoted from What Life Means to Einstein in 1924, a contemporary Renaissance. Allowing downtime while we're adulting through meditation, or just watching the clouds float by can help free some of the congestion that blocks our current passion. Many achievements and innovations have come through as daydreams, times where minds were able to wander. People weren't always aware of the divine process of inspiration occurring. They just followed what felt natural and compelling. As I was talking to Kim in my life, my spouse and partner in this thing I call life, about some of the themes, she shared a time when one of our friends was getting married and she wanted to get them a gift, and either from lack, not having the money to go buy a big fancy gift, or also that feeling of wanting to offer something personal, she decided to create a work of art for them. And she thought, well, I'm not a portrait artist, I'm not a still life artist, I'm not a watercolor or oil artist, but said, I like colors. So she said, well, I'm going to make a collage for them. And she created this collage for their wedding present and gave it to them, and they loved it. But not only did they love it, but other people were like, wow, I really like your style. Can you do one of those for me? And then this led to a years-long passion of her exploring different medium and creating collage work and mixing in watercolors. And it showed up many times in her life when she was feeling the need to let out that creativity. One day she was praying to, on abundance and prosperity, and a call came from someone who said, I'd like to buy 3 of your pieces, just out of the blue. They're opening up an office space. So those little creative things come, and when we're in a creative space, not necessarily creative arts, but an open space of saying, I'm willing to put myself out there, other serendipitous connections come. This is a time when she met Nikki, who's her co-author, dropped in out of the blue, getting a letter from someone who's in prison in San Diego, who becomes then part of her life and part of her creative process. So coming back to the thought of us as small children, they are often great demonstrators of joy and passion, right? So they are not self-conscious or worried about what others might think of their actions. They live with an innate spontaneity and freedom that runs through their activities. Wearing a tutu or a superhero cape, this would be a great party for us. Colorful rain boots and a straw hat. I'm definitely getting some Marguerite vibes here. It would not be unusual for a child then to dance right off into their make-believe world. Remember what I shared last week about how I'm wearing braces now, and it makes me talk a little funny, and how 20 years ago, as a 14-year-old, I might have just kept my mouth shut and not talked to people. Coming back to a childlike state, I don't care, right? No one's told me you sound funny or you look funny or you shouldn't be wearing those rain boots with that hat. I've just been able to slough off and been able to be authentic now to say, all right, maybe I sound funny for a while. Let's laugh. Life is good. It's okay. Early passions and purposes were often suppressed when we were told to be practical, right? We would be shamed or made wrong for having unrealistic goals. Overheating the opinions of others is a definite squelcher of creativity. Far preferable is to trust our intuitive selves, and others' opinions can be entertained, but not override our inner calling, right? We'll hear you. Thank you for that information and wisdom. Let it go. After we recognize that inner joy or passion which we began in childhood, we also can be aware of that initial spark. We got that initial spark that came through spirit, okay? We are assuredly given the means to actualize it. When we feel that joy, that energy, that love, that creativity, that passion to be putting ourselves out in the world, like you do, Brad, we of course were given the means to actualize it. By focus and alignment of our desires, a path is revealed, directing us towards that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. knowing that there is an inner roadmap to get us from here to there, and we simply need to determine the first step, then allow the next step, then the next, and allow it to naturally flow. Because alignment and energy and prayer and the whole essence of God is I am, and therefore I have all I need to move in this route. So following the example of passion-driven, intuitive children, we learn to trust, to play freely, to act upon our own inner drive. Many successful adults have credited their achievements to that activity that they naturally loved as a child. So discovering your passion is just a few mindless moments away. Letting yourself daydream is a secret tool that was dismissed or even discouraged in childhood, especially when we're sitting in a classroom supposed to be listening to a teacher, right? Daydream, look out the window. Remember your early joys that were ignited through imagination and play. As you let go of self-conscious thoughts, you can reclaim your inner passion and begin the momentum of expanding into your purpose. Trust that spontaneous options are revealed throughout the day. What are you being guided to act upon? Take a new path to work or walk a new route. Do you love to dance, but we're worried about other people's thoughts? Many give their power to the opinions of people they have never met. It is time to reclaim our inner joy and our passion. Aaron Etaw, who wrote a blog, said this: bake cakes, learn how to code, volunteer, start a book club, design a logo. It doesn't matter. Just keep experimenting until you find what speaks to you. And if you want to bake a cake, it's great to then you can. So, before we go into prayer, I'd like to just get quiet. If you're comfortable with that, allow your eyes to close. And recognizing that this container, this center for spiritual living, this choice that you made to be here today is one that places you in a place, in an environment of safety, of wholeness, of security. And it's also a place where we can remember that joyful energy, that joyful time within, perhaps as a child. So think for a moment about what brought you joy as a child. Whatever pops into your mind. Perhaps it was a time of playfully playing in an imaginary world where you could be whatever you desired. Think for a moment too of what did you want to be when you grew up? If it's a what, if it's not, maybe it's just a feeling. But what was it when you were a child? And is the essence of that still calling you today? What passions early in your life called you and filled you up with nurture? What are those seeds of life from that time to this time? Knowing those stepping stones along the way lead you to this place. So it is that I recognize the one light, the one power, the one presence that is right here within you now and always. that the absolute qualities of God, of joy and passion, of creativity and love, that those are who you are now and always. And we bless that time of imagination and creativity, knowing that we can go back into that energy of creativity when we move gently away from the busyness and doingness of life. The Spirit says, turn on a song and dance like no one's watching. God gives you the permission to do that whenever it feels right. But bless in this moment the lightness, the light energy of who you are. Knowing that no matter what age and at what time, powerfully experiencing your joy is the igniter for your passion. And so I give thanks for that. I give thanks for the love that was implanted on you before you incarnated in this world and stays with you forever. I give gratitude for all the good that you unleash on this world in ways I've described and ways way beyond that, knowing that even more exciting, wonderful, loving, kind ways of experiencing you in this world are happening right now. And so I let this prayer go. I bounce it off into the law of life that says, yes, yes, yes. We anchor this prayer together. If you'd like to join me by saying, and so it is. Thank you all. Let Ralph go.